I call long-term care planning the elephant in the room. It is the ultimate topic that no one wants to discuss. It's hard to talk about, hard to even think about to yourself, much less talk to your spouse, your adult-aged children, family members, or friends. Not being able to take care of yourself is an awesome burden. It becomes even more difficult when financial matters become involved. I'm Jay. I'm the author of this book, Maximize Your Medicare. Up on the top of the screen, you'll see the website for the book, maximizeyourmedicare.com. Long-term care planning certainly being, a related topic, important to many. We're going to go through a presentation or some of the most important slides to presentations I've been giving in public to locations who are of people who are interested in knowing what the current state of play, what can be done today if you want to try to think through how to take care of yourself if you cannot take care of yourself. So I'm going to be so I've been waiting to do this for a while, and let's take a look at this. Here is your fundamental problem, right? Which is that in addition to all the emotion of I can't take care of myself, empowerment, etc., self-determination, I guess is the right word. This is the graph of your net worth if you required one of these two things, and it's here. I'll shrink myself, thankfully for you. I'm sure you're all thankful. Healthcare costs, long-term service and supports. If one of these two things hits you, you can have retirement savings, you could have 401k, 403b, IRA, Roth IRA, Social Security benefits. I get all of that. Okay. That said, as you age, this can occur, and the drop here, this red line, is much sharper than what you might have all planned for or thought through when you thought about when you're going through retirement. Well, so basically in what I'm going to do today is just follow this. And you can see notably, right, I didn't specify what your household net worth is. You could be worth $50,000. You could be worth $50 million. This same graph still applies. Okay? Let's take a look at what you need. So in order, you can see this very kinked, sharply angled line downwards, as you can see in the orange. So what we're going to do here today, what you need in order to counterbalance this, so that your household net worth, this green line, does not decline this sharply, is what we are doing is we are looking for something to counterbalance it. That looks like this. And you can see it as I'm going to flip back and forth here. This here is just the mirror image. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of this. Now, the reason I'm starting here, right, started with the idea about Medicare health insurance, for example, is that they are related, right? And how are they related? Because we know, people like me, we understand that this graph here does have a mathematic formula. It's a mathematic formula, and here it is. So much like a put or a call in stocks, so this is what happens to your call if Apple stock rises to 210, whatever you have, you get a lot more. Much like health insurance, if you require healthcare services, you start receiving benefits. That's the graph here. In the same way, those contracts, and long-term care is going to be included here, we'll get to that, is by this formula, this framework. There are twists and variations on the framework, yes. But nevertheless, it's still the same framework, right? There are variations on a theme for music. The reason I'm making this point is that the world is going to change. Health insurance is going to change. You can see it in the Democratic debates. I've made comments on Medicare for All already. You can see on this YouTube channel. You'll see financial markets. You'll see these contracts, and you'll see innovations, new twists, new developments. Okay? And what they're really doing, what I'm doing, what this channel is about is, okay, how does it affect this angle? How does it affect this price, this minus 200? Right? How are these changes going to affect this angle, this graph, this payoff diagram? Well, they're unified, right? They're unified by the single framework. So, as you know, if you're here with me now, click around, you'll see related videos, right? All sorts of, this, that, and the other expert saying, okay, well, do this and don't do this, and do this and don't do this. And my approach here is going to be different, right? Because I'm going to actually try to build you the intuition of why and how to go about it so that when the world changes, which it will do, right? It will certainly change, right? How does your mind have to adjust? Hey, is this something that I actually have to examine, or does this really not affect me? And it is difficult to separate the signal from the noise. For example, today's video, in a year, I'm sure there are going to be more iterations. There are going to be more options available to you, the consumer. There's no doubt. I have zero doubt about that. The speed, however, and the accuracy of how this affects you depends on your advisor's ability to know what this is, so that if they can evaluate what the effect on this is. That's the important thing. How does it affect your cash flow? Because we know that this thing here, we need this upward slope in order to counterbalance this. Now we can begin. So this is the graph of household net worth. Yes, no question about it. To give you an idea on the cost, the cheapest I've seen for skilled nursing facility care is somewhere in the mid $100 a day. I have seen that. Okay, so can you get it at $4,500 a month? Yeah, that's possible. Home health care, where you can have skilled nursing facility personnel or trained people come to your home to administer the same type of care for custodial care, for example. Yes, is that available on an hourly basis? Is that a more cost-effective way to handle the matter? Yes. If you need it full-time, is it still going to create the same angle? It's going to change the slope of the angle. It's not going to change the idea here. The bottom line is you're here largely because you've seen, you've heard, you may be curious about the fact that this is your financial effect. Your financial effect. Okay. So speeding right along, when we get to these options, which we're going to get to, I always tell our clients the following. You're going to first have to define, what are you actually trying to accomplish? And it's not that easy, right? Because you're never going to hear me tell you, well, take all your savings and your entire Social Security and all your pension money and pile it into this. No, we never do that, right? Some of you have limited net worth. So the dollars that you'd be plowing into these different, alternatives would take away groceries, the electricity bill. Forget it. That's not the recommendation here. So the right sizing here, this first point here, that the right sizing of how you're going to determine whether or not this thing is worth it is important. Ultimately here, you're paying in order to avoid Murphy's Law. In other words, yesterday I posted a video about what had happened with China and foreign exchange, okay, in financial markets. And that's my original home, as you could tell from, that formula that I brought out, right? That is my original home, meaning evaluating derivatives, and that formula and the graph are pictures of payout structures of derivatives, much like your extended warranty on your refrigerator, by the way. But the fact is that I can hedge, I can protect you if you're worried about the fact that you own 100 shares of Apple stock. That you can protect. A single item we can protect easily. No problem. You can just sell, for example. You may take a small loss. Changing your mind will cost you $10. No problem. However, it's the combination of stuff occurring. And this is what I mean by Murphy's Law. When it rains, it pours. That's the everyday cliche, right? When multiple things happen. What are multiple things? Your 401k is down, and then you get hit with an unexpected medical bill. Perfect example, and more likely. If you are trying to tell me that, well, I'm just going to rely on my 401k and the growth of the 401k to pay for unexpected bills, the problem with that is financial markets, right? You see this in the long-term stocks are superior, et cetera, et cetera. Financial markets cannot replicate this cash flow diagram. It cannot. Advisor, stock picker, whoever it would have to be, would either have to be very good and they have to be very lucky, right? Portfolio manager is not going to be promising you a portfolio on your 401k that looks like this. No way. And if they are, run. There's your bottom line advice, right? Because that's a promise that they cannot fulfill. And don't get me wrong, any financial advisor is not going to tell you. They're going to tell you, financial markets involve risk, etc. So now on we go. So I gave you the first principle, which is, to clearly identify what you're trying to accomplish. The second one here, and I'm going to be saying this over the next period, which is if you want to compare effects, you follow the cash flow. And that sounds simple. And it actually is, right? Because I don't need to remind you or to tell you something you already know. You look at health insurance. You look at life insurance. You look at annuities. You look at what you see is a flood, an avalanche, a blizzard of jargon. Deductible, copay, out-of-pocket maximum, maximum benefit limit, elimination period, indemnification, reimbursement. It's dizzying. And I'm sympathetic to that. So what I try to do is boil it down to the idea that you want to compare these different products against one another and the different variations, which may seem slight, and you see all these fancy, presentations, or you get like takeaway pamphlets and brochures and things like that. Very difficult to compare side by side. What I'm trying to help you do here is to remind you, just follow the cash flow. Just follow the cash flow. It's my job. It's my job. It's our job to figure out for you, okay, which one of this language. I'm evaluating the language because it affects these diagrams, right? Which are just different cases of, these pictures, right? This picture, right? I combine these two pictures together, and what do you get? You get this picture. So that's really what I end up doing, and what we're going to do here, and we're going to don't stop the video here. We're going to continue on because I'm going to revisit this slide. The first widely known thing is that long-term care insurance exists, right? Very simple. You pay a premium. If you require long-term care, right, you cannot fulfill 2 activities of daily living, right? We're not going to get into what all of them are, etc., but the criteria is going to be 2 activities of daily living. Continence, for example. Then there's usually a waiting period. It's called elimination period, which can be changed. That's elimination period. Once that passes, you can receive benefits. That's it. I'm just describing how you follow the cash flow. That's all. You pay money. That's your premium. You have to satisfy some condition, the elimination period, and activities of daily living. From there, you get reimbursed cash. And this cash flow can occur in different ways. And again, we're talking about tons of different jargon. Some have paid directly to the skilled nursing facility, which is called reimbursement. Some just write you a check, which is called indemnity. Fine. Okay. Again, detracting away from it's my job to filter all of the fine points of the language and what precisely these terms mean, explain it to our people so that our consumers, our clients, the people that we've been taking care of for years, that they are fully comfortable with the conditions under which they're going to be receiving. Why? So that it becomes clear that they can follow the cash flow. So I think this is not exactly. Let's just see what we've done here. Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. So long-term care insurance has negative headlines. And in many cases, this has been earned. Okay. Challenges persist on long-term care. Number one, there's underwriting. There are extensive questions that you need to answer about your medical history, about your family's medical history. They are not the same as under Medicare. They are not the same as under life insurance. It's going to be a different set. And while the language about what an elimination period is, the problem with long-term care here is that first, the sellers are having different language in terms of the elimination period, indemnification, and reimbursement, like I said. So in other words, what ends up happening is it's hard to compare carrier 1 to carrier 2 because the payout differs. Again, that graph differs slightly, and these angles matter. The second one is that premiums can increase over time as costs increase and calculations worsen. Now, that is true, meaning that long-term care insurance carriers, they have to apply to the state regulator and prove that, hey, look, we are losing money because the premiums we're taking in are not sufficient to meet the claims. And this has occurred. People say, okay, well, these insurance companies are just making truckloads of money. Well, sometime take a look at a graph of Genworth stock, right? Teetering, really. Many long-term care insurance carriers have folded or have stopped offering new contracts to new applicants. Why? Because the claims have exceeded the premiums by a large degree. That said, 2 things here. I don't want to say it blanket statement that long-term care insurance is unviable. Payout, enormous. To give you an idea, can you get $500,000 of coverage just under long-term care? The answer to that is yes. Can you get amounts in excess of that? The answer is yes. And you can see how it relates back to our slides here, which is not this one. This one. You see this purple line? This is long-term care insurance. It's not purple, is it? Anyway, long-term care insurance, you can see it. The red line down here. The premium is higher. The premium is much higher. Okay? $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year. Is that possible? Yes. You can see what ends up happening. If you meet the criteria, elimination period, two activities of daily living, the angle here is sharper. Not only is the angle sharper, meaning that the benefits you receive are faster and more, but not only that, the total amount, you can see how this purple, this lavender line, the cash flow flattens out at a much higher level. The absolute maximum benefit amount is much higher for the dollars. Okay, that's long-term care insurance. In a nutshell, that's long-term care insurance. There are a ton of different new alternatives. You can see that I'm too busy to have this all polished, so you'll excuse and forgive me for that. This is what I call hybrid, and there's a bunch of different labels. Now, some call it accelerated benefits, some call it living benefits. There are a bunch of different other ways. Again, follow the cash flow, right? Basically, the story here is this is life insurance as you have previously known or are familiar with. You pay a premium, and if you meet the criteria, then you start collecting benefits. This can happen while you're still living. Okay, so this is the hybrid here. And you can read along here. I'm not going to go on here bullet for bullet. I presume that everyone can read just as well. So what ends up happening here is the appeal here is that if it's unused, then the life insurance benefit is paid to the beneficiaries. So this is that situation, right? The negative to long-term care insurance is the fact that that you can continue to pay these premiums and never get the return. You never get that purple line, in which case your money has gone. It's gone when you pass away. Under hybrid life insurance, what happens is you pay the premium, you're going to get some benefit. Someone is going to get a benefit. It's either you, because you're going to have either the entire or a large majority of the benefit amount, your life insurance amount. And then you can also have, if you don't use it, then the amount can go to your beneficiaries. Now again, this is not exactly long-term care insurance. You won't hear me use the term long-term care insurance here. They are separate. They are separate. And again, this is why I say follow the cash flow, right? Because from a practical point of view, right, from a contractual point of view, the language of the contract is different. That is true. From a cash flow point of view, they're not as different. There are distinctions. There are certainly distinctions, no question about it. There's not the formal language of elimination period inside of life insurance. Not exactly. However, the actual function looks and feels the same. So under life insurance, there are a bunch of different issues, right? And they're here in this middle section where these 3 bullet points. So as the graph I showed you here, right, where I'm comparing them for you. No. Here, the premium's much lower. The angle is much less steep. And the total benefit amount, this brown line here, this brown line is much lower. Okay, so now, can you get on $100,000? The answer is yes. Where this is your maximum benefit amount. That answer is yes. Is the premium going to be lower? In other words, you can see there's a negative cash flow from the baseline, this green line, but the amount of negative is much less than the amount of negative. In other words, your cash outflow is smaller to get to the green line compared to the orange line here. There's your trade-off. There's your trade-off right there from a cash flow perspective. Okay? Now, here's the issue, and here is, of course, here's some challenge. Let me move myself out of the way here. Yep, there we go. So, is it weaker than traditional long-term care insurance? Overall, the answer is going to be yes. Overall, the answer is going to be yes. Right? You need to, for example, your situation under life insurance, this not satisfying 2 ADLs, activities of daily living, this has to be permanent. In general, this must be permanent. You cannot just have hip replacement surgery, go to the skilled nursing facility for 3 months, and then return home. Long-term care insurance will work, right, if you've satisfied their criteria. Under hybrid life insurance, generally speaking, this will not, right, because this is not a permanent situation. Okay? The good and the bad here about hybrid life insurance is kind of, some kind of summary of this page, right? Which is that the amount of competition here is crazy. If I said there are 20 sellers with 4 varieties, I'd be wildly low. And the issue for consumers, the issue even for me, right, is most of our time here is to figure out, because the language and underwriting is not standardized. You could be accepted by carrier 1. You can be rejected by carrier 2 on thin margins. We got to be careful in applying. I can't stress this enough. What I don't like about the, Selecta quotes or these radio commercials to get life insurance and stuff like that is that the sellers, they're sharing information with each other through something called MIB Inc. Right? And you can't, and they do so in order to prevent insurance fraud. So you can't if you get rejected by carrier 1, you have to report it to carrier 2. Well, if you've been rejected by carrier 1, let's just say your likelihood of being accepted by carrier 2, it's not improved, right? It's not improved. It can only have one direction, which is worse. So you've got all of these trade-offs. It's a jungle. It's a jungle here, right? Because this stuff, the way that these language and comparing apples to apples, none of it is standardized. The sellers are using their different language, terminology, conditions. In life insurance, it's, for example, certain carriers, they'll pay you 100% of your benefit amount in total. Some of them are limiting it to 50%. Some of them limit it to 90%. Well, how are you going to compare all of these? Right? So, again, follow the cattle, right? In other words, the one that pays out less, yeah, it should have a lower green line. The green line, the premium should be lower. Right? So again, it's follow the cash flow when you're trying to compare these. And it's not easy. I'm not going to kid you. I'd love to tell you, oh, you just click your heels twice, say there's no place like home, and then you end up in the desired location. That is not possible because these cash flows differ across the board under all of the different options. The language and underwriting is not standardized. Okay? So those are substantial hurdles. There are more. There are more options that are available. Those are the two dominant, but I don't want to, because there's a certain set of people, a certain set of listeners here, watchers here, viewers, where you can see it. Long-term care insurance, life insurance, there are medical questions. To some degree, there are going to be medical questions. That stops here. Again, I'll move. As you can see, I didn't practice or anything like that. I'm just repeating what I've said many times in the past. There are annuities. There are deferred annuities where they have lifetime benefit riders, income riders, lifetime benefit riders. You've seen them, right? The basic concept, the setup to an annuity is, and I call it the coffee can. I always use these analogies to make it simple. You put $100 in 100 units into a coffee can. You set the can into the ground. Someday later, you open up the can and you hit the red button to get an annuity stream of income that never expires. Okay? This is its function. This is its function. And if you look at the other financial advice you see in the world, if you listen to other advisors, for the most part, or not for the most part, you'll see it, which is some advisors call annuities annuicide. Yeah, it's annuicide because the money is no longer actively managed and therefore not subject to fees. Okay? However, I need to point this out because I'm in the minority, or I can be in the minority. I'm from financial markets, as I've explained to you, and as you can have seen in other videos. I'm exposed to financial markets at the highest level, to institutional investors and governments both. An annuity has a specific function. It has a function, and that one function here is to hit this red button, which is to get the lifetime annuity, the lifetime income stream. Why would you want to do this in certain cases? Well, the reason is again, financial markets are subject to up and down, right? So in addition to that, it also adds a discipline. To withdrawal. It's not that simple. You'll know that you may know somebody. They got a big lump sum from a prior employer. I'm not going to pay a pension. I'm going to pay this big lump sum as a buyout. And some of them say, okay, and some are given the option. And some say, okay, I want the entire money now. Well, now you've presumed that you have the discipline to be able to withdraw. That you didn't stop and, oh yeah, I would like this new car, when it doesn't fit your financial plan. Right, so it has to do with following the cash flow and what you are trying to accomplish. Annuity does have this role. Now, I didn't say 100%. I didn't say put all your savings in there. I don't want anybody to put words in my mouth. I'm just saying that, does it have a function? The answer is yes. And the reason here, and the reason back to on annuities I'm mentioning here, is some annuities now allow for kickers, what I call kickers, right? Which is, let's say you've hit the red button. Okay, now you've put the money in the coffee can, in it goes. 5 years pass, 7 years pass, all non-standardized requirements by the sellers, all of them non-standardized, you got to be careful. But once this situation occurs and you've hit the red button, and then you required long-term care services, support and service, LTSS is the think tank and the ivory tower like to call it LTSS. Anyway, if you cannot take care of yourself, if you can meet the criteria, and you've hit the red button, the amount that you receive, let's call it $1,000 a month, can increase. And it can increase for a specified time based on the annuity. So you can see that there is a function where you need this extra cash flow. You're just following the cash flow here, and the cash flows here are different. You put money into the coffee can. You bury it into the ground. After a period of time, you hit the red button and get the lifetime income stream. And if the situation occurred that you cannot take care of yourself, then you get an enhanced number, more than when you first hit the red button. That happens. Okay, this now is part of the world's competitive, right? The sellers, they have unlimited computing power and unlimited legal resources. They know the market exists. The reason I spent this time here, these last 10 minutes here in discussing this, is that there's no underwriting here. There is no underwriting here. There are no medical questions here. So this becomes valuable, right? Because to a certain set of you, you cannot pass medical questions. You might not pass the body mass index. You may have a pre-existing condition. You may have an incurable disease. Even if it doesn't have symptoms, there's a list that I promise you that the long-term care insurance carriers, as well as the life insurance carriers, they will tell you we can't offer it with these special features. Long-term care insurance, you're going to be denied. Let's take an easy one. Rheumatoid arthritis, right? Can be crippling. Widest variety of outcomes, right? There are some persons that are very well managed rheumatoid arthritis. Phil Mickelson plays golf, right? Professional golf. That said, long-term care insurance is not an option. Life insurance, you're going to get a hard look under that type of situation. Body mass index, going to create a different set of problems. Annuity has no underwriting. So again, the idea that I know that you have lots of options, and I'm sure I'm not the first person that you've clicked on in terms of watching today's video. But the fact of the matter is that this particular option has this feature with these other additional features, the kicker that I just talked about. This market is also evolving. So you can understand why I'm sympathetic and trying to not nail down to a particular carrier or their particular option, because they are innovating. They're doing it now. I guarantee you that. So we're back here then. And finally here, there are asset-based valuations. We're going to skip over this one, except for this part that I've highlighted. Right sizing vital. So while I'm not in the camp of the idea that an annuity or any of these products, right? None of these products, they can't be misfit. Too often what happens is, Jay, can you look through all of my documents and tell me about my financial planning and my current setup? Too often, the different elements, the fragments, they don't fit right. Right? They have too much life insurance because it's worth way more than their net worth, and the cost of the premium is taking away from health insurance that would be better allocated to help them today, for example. Right? And I'm just making it up. I have awful health, and I have stage 3 cancer, and I have a investment portfolio full of growth stocks that are going to pan out in 10 years. This mismatch occurs. And that's what I mean by this right sizing. Right? My job here is to say, look, identify what you've done, explain to you how those graphs of following the cash flow actually work for you at different price points, and then agree with you on the right sizing, how much. It has to be relative to your net worth. That's going to change from house to house. That's going to change based on your opinion about how risk averse you are. That's not my job. I don't get a vote in that, right? I'm there to listen, to hear how you think about this, because it very much affects everything here. It affects this, right? And if you're trying to compare which one is for you, or if any of them are for you, you've got to think about these all in combination with each other. That said, the options do exist. Absolutely. So again, what are you trying to accomplish? Follow the cash flow. If you keep these in mind, you can apply these two principles into the widest variety of different financial topics. Health insurance. Absolutely. Umbrella insurance on your house. These cash flow diagrams are very, very similar. It's a question of attaching all of this alphabet soup everywhere that you're hit with. All the jargon, trademarks, so-and-so's income advantage ultra. Who knows what that means? However, if you follow the cash flow, you can keep on track. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, Maximize Your Medicare, because I'm going to be coming out. There are going to be some special deals here for subscriber to the channel. Let me just see if we've got a copy here. Should. Nope. Oh, yes, there we go. So, in February of 2020, this book is the existing edition. Today's edition is available on Amazon.com. You can go there. You can see up there at the top of your screen the scrolling. MaximizeYourMedicare.com. There's a Facebook group. Do we have it here? No, we don't. I don't want to kill you and bore you. There's a Facebook group. Join it. Why? The language is coming. It's not only that, the news headlines coming fast and furious. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. It's going to be the subject. It is topic number 1A in the presidential election, all the way through 2020, the end of 2020, and beyond that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. We'll talk with you next time.